Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another marvelous video. When people think of xenomorphs, the image that usually comes to mind is the alien queen, but there's another figure that plays a role just as fascinating, the alien king. He's not always present, and entire hives can thrive without one, which makes him all the more fascinating. The king is rare, and in many ways changes everything about the hive once he emerges. So sit back and enjoy as we dive into an entire video about him. Before we get into things though, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is the alien king? What is his origin story? In popular fanon culture, the alien king, sometimes referred to simply as the king, also known as the monstrosity, is one of the rarest forms of xenomorph out there. Now, if you're familiar with xenomorphs, you probably already recognize their queen, the massive egg-laying matriarch of the hive. But the king is something different. We're talking about a creature so massive and resilient that entire hives might only produce one under the right conditions. Unlike the usual castes, which are almost always considered female, the king is often thought of as the male counterpart of the species, though that's still up for debate. Some fans even call them alien sovereigns, since they stand at the very top of the hive's hierarchy. Thanks to their rapid regeneration and sheer strength, the king is more than capable of overwhelming infantry squads and even tearing apart armored tanks without much effort. Sightings are almost unheard of, but a handful of specimens have been noted. The most famous is nicknamed Kansas, a king discovered on LV-223. Out of all the known examples, Kansas has become the most studied, giving us a rare glimpse into the xenomorph line. The life cycle of the alien king in the alien mythos. Now, let's talk about something that sets the alien king apart from the queen and the rest of the xenomorphs. Their life cycle. And trust us, this is where things get downright fascinating for alien fans. Unlike your average xenomorph or even the powerhouse queen, the alien king's creation is not a matter of just evolving up the food chain. You can't just level up a regular xeno through brute force or age and expect a king to pop out. It's way more complicated than that, so here's how it goes. Unlike queens, who can evolve naturally from other castes, kings require something very different. Alien kings begin their existence from very special eggs known as king ovomorphs, which are much larger and far more resource-heavy than a regular egg. Producing one takes an enormous amount of royal jelly, which is basically the secret sauce of alien royalty, but kings need way more of it than queens or other advanced xenomorph forms do. Now, not every queen is up to the task either. For standard queens and even the empresses, who are above the queens in rank, producing a king's egg is a significant ordeal, draining and intensive in terms of resources. The only ones who seem to lay them without breaking a sweat are the queen mothers, and even for them, it's not exactly a regular event. So what is actually happening inside these special eggs? Well, the high dose of royal jelly triggers a unique mutation. Basically, if an egg gets enough of this, it results in a male, the elusive king. Without all that extra royal jelly, you get female xenomorphs instead, no matter how much you wish for a king. What makes it all even cooler is the implications for xenomorph society and biology. When an alien king shows up, he's not just a rare leader. His very existence makes it more likely for other kings to appear in the future. This isn't just random, it's thought to encourage genetic diversity between colonies, strengthening the species as a whole and ensuring the hive continues to evolve in new ways. Famous alien kings. Let's take a look at the different life cycles of alien kings now. Ovomorph / facehugger. It all starts with an egg called the king ovomorph. Once laid, it sits in incubation for about 4 months before finally hatching. Out of it comes the king facehugger, bigger and far more cunning than the typical facehuggers we've seen before. Unlike those regular facehuggers that simply wait for prey to stumble too close, this one actually hunts. It can sense hosts from several meters away thanks to its heightened abilities and will stalk down large animals as its preferred targets. It can survive in this state for months if it has to, biding its time until the perfect host comes along. Chestburster. The king's chestburster doesn't waste any time. Within about 6 hours of the facehugger doing its job, this thing tears its way out, and compared to your average chestburster, it's already bigger from the start. For the next 2 days, the host's body becomes its food supply, fueling that rapid growth. By the end of that short window, it already looks like a xenomorph, but it's still fragile in this state. Night. This is the first real phase in the king's life cycle. Known as the Knight, the young king already stands above ordinary soldiers in both strength and authority. At this point, he's not overly combative. Instead, he spends about 2 weeks learning his role in hive society, adapting to the structure around him. Despite the name, this isn't a particularly violent stage. In fact, knights tend to spend their 2 weeks of growth observing more than fighting, maturing into what comes next. Grand Duke. The next step in a young king's life is called the Grand Duke. By now, he's bulked up, bigger than a soldier, but not quite at Praetorian level. Strong and starting to throw his weight around, the Grand Duke begins testing his dominance within the hive, especially over his sisters. But even with that confidence, he's still beneath the Praetorians in the hierarchy. This stage is when he really starts getting bold, stepping into combat and trying to prove himself. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Many young males don't survive this phase, rushing into fights they aren't quite ready for. The Grand Duke stage usually lasts about 3 months, and it's often the make-or-break moment in the rise of the alien king. The Prince. The Prince is what you would call a sub-adult king. By this stage, he's grown into something in between a Praetorian and a queen, a nearly complete king in terms of size and power. He's already strong enough to be a major line of defense for the hive, but there is a catch. He can't stay there forever. There are 2 main reasons for this. First, when a queen sends a young king to a nearby hive, it boosts the chances that the hive will send a king back, helping to mix up the gene pool. Second, if a prince sticks around too long without forming a bond with a queen, it can cause conflicts within the hive. The young Praetorians around him start developing the urge to evolve into queens themselves to pair with him, and that sparks problems, rivalry, inbreeding, and messy fights for dominance. Most princes end up submitting to an older king, assuming that they don't get outright killed. Given enough time, they'll grow into full kings, though without the reproductive rights of a hive's ruling mate. In rare cases, when too many kings are present in one space, the pressure can actually force one of them to evolve into something far greater, an emperor. Normally, the prince stage lasts around 2 months, though some princes deliberately slow their growth, buying time so they don't become competition for a king who already rules the hive. King. This is the fully grown stage of the male alien. At this point, he rivals a queen in size, and some kings even grow large enough to stand alongside an empress. Adult kings are immense, powerful creatures, so formidable that they are often described as having no natural predators. When they reach this stage, kings usually leave their home territory to settle in a distant hive, searching for unrelated colonies. There, they court the resident queen and are accepted as her mate. Kings will periodically mate with queens, but they are also known to reproduce with empresses and even queen mothers. It's uncommon for 2 kings to share a single queen, though there have been rare exceptions where males share the role of king, often believed to be brothers. Even then, rivalries tend to break out. They fight for dominance, and the victor becomes the queen's sole mate. The loser may remain as a secondary, but more often he departs to find another hive or attempts to court a Praetorian, encouraging her to evolve into a new queen. In the end, adult kings are defined by their drive to reproduce and their search for territory, making them agents of constant expansion. Emperor. An emperor isn't a standard life stage for male xenomorphs, but rather a rare evolution that only certain kings undergo. It's the only recognized caste that a king can ascend to, and it stands as the highest. An emperor can grow to rival a queen mother in size, though his authority sits somewhere between that of a queen and an empress. Research suggests that to achieve this transformation, a king must either consume vast amounts of royal jelly or trigger an alternative process that forces his body to metamorphose into a larger and stronger form. Kings are believed to take this path only in the presence of rival kings or an empress, as a way of maintaining balance within the hive. In the absence of an empress or a queen mother, the emperor becomes the ultimate authority, though he usually refrains from imposing this dominance over his mate, the queen. Emperor xenomorphs are among the rarest of all. Because most kings never feel compelled to evolve this far, emperors were once hunted as legendary trophies by ancient races feared for their extreme power. In appearance, they share similarities with kings, but are more heavily built, with larger crests and longer tails. Some argue that an emperor is simply an unusually large and old king, but this theory has been challenged. One account describes a young king who immediately began evolving into an emperor to take control of a hive that already had a ruling king. The War King. The War King is a special adaptation that certain alien kings go through when faced with an external threat. To become a War King, the xenomorph must grow in size, becoming more resilient and physically powerful, with muscle and durability heightened to tolerate heavy conflict. While a War King doesn't reach the same level of dominance or stature as an emperor, it is a far quicker evolution, forged out of necessity rather than ambition. The metamorphosis into this form takes only 5 days, allowing the king to respond rapidly when the hive is under pressure. In some cases, alien kings deliberately shift into war kings as a means of overpowering rivals, seeking to secure dominance over other kings on the path to an eventual emperor ascension. Within the hierarchy, a war king carries slightly greater authority than a standard king, though he remains bound to the will of the queen and the higher castes above him. Behavior of alien kings. The full extent of alien king intelligence remains uncertain, but they're widely regarded as highly intelligent and among the rare xenomorph casts that display signs of genuine emotion. One of the most significant studies was conducted by Bionational Corporation, which bred a young alien king during its so-called prince phase. This specimen, known as John, was born from a human prisoner who had been used as a host. John demonstrated unusual behavior when compared to his kind. Raised outside of a hive, he didn't display hostile instincts towards humans as he didn't perceive them as having reproductive value. As long as he was kept fed, he tolerated the presence of people in his cell, provided they didn't venture too close. Remarkably, John appeared capable of self-recognition as he identified himself in a mirror, an indication of self-awareness. He also showed curiosity and even playfulness. His caretakers performed simple magic tricks for him, and John would be filled with excitement as he tried to understand them, whining in frustration when he failed to understand the illusions. He began to mimic certain gestures and behaviors from his handlers, even attempting to imitate human speech. As with other experiments, however, the alien's physiology made actual vocal imitation impossible. Like other alien kings, John's temperament shifted when introduced to a hive. While he did become more hostile under those conditions, he also retained some recognition of his creators and remained less aggressive towards them than towards strangers. Young alien kings in their night phase, a stage comparable to childhood, have been observed engaging in playful activities. They tear pieces from corpses and toy with them, and at times even play together in a manner resembling games of chase. Male xenomorphs are markedly calmer than females. Alien kings, in particular, are more patient and observant than most of their species. They usually stay calm and only act when they sense a real threat, sometimes even stepping in to discipline other xenomorphs in the hive. Kings also show courtship behaviors towards queens, often offering gifts even though they are already their mates. Interestingly, their personalities don't seem to change much based on their hosts. They tend to follow similar behaviors under similar conditions. However, when alien kings face constant pressure or stress, they sometimes start to evolve into war kings. This change helps steady them, giving them more confidence thanks to their increased power. And in extreme cases, if the stress never lets up, some kings push further and try to become emperors, aiming for the top spot in the hive's hierarchy. More about the alien king. For a long time, the true sex of xenomorph specimens remained a matter of speculation. They were often assumed to be asexual or at the very least exclusively female. The emergence and recognition of alien kings challenged this belief and reignited debate. Research conducted by the Bionational Corporation revealed that xenomorphs possess a fixed number of chromosomes regardless of their host organism, 37 pairs for a total of 74. Hybrid specimens created through artificial means, however, tend to retain a chromosome count closer to their host species, which typically leads to incompatibility with naturally bred xenomorphs. Among all the known types of xenomorph, alien kings were the only specimens to demonstrate the presence of Y chromosomes. All other natural casts lack them, confirming that the majority of the species is in fact female. Alien kings, therefore, represent the male form of the species. Even in their juvenile stages, they are commonly referred to as xenomorph kings. Xenomorph kings are among the most powerful and resource-intensive castes to exist. Across xenomorph distribution, organizations take very different approaches. Some actively suppress hive development to prevent the rise of kings, while others deliberately encourage their creation for research, experimentation, or military applications. The amount of royal jelly required to produce a king makes the process extraordinarily expensive. This explains their rarity in the wild, where resources are scarce and outside forces often interfere to keep them from forming. In controlled environments, however, some kings have been introduced into experimental hives where they often serve a stabilizing role. Their behavior is indifferent toward whether their hive members are genetically modified, making them surprisingly adaptable to artificial colonies. Despite difficulties in reproduction, the two established a functioning bond and coexisted within their hive. Kings are also easier to maintain compared to other castes. They show less inclination to escape, display a higher tolerance for human presence, and in some cases have even been employed as living guardians. Their instinct to defend their territory has proven invaluable during Yautja incursions. Released kings were reported to hunt and exterminate every invader within their domain ruthlessly. Marvelous verdict. Well guys, that wraps up everything we know about the alien king and his role in the xenomorph hierarchy. But what do you think? Do you believe the king is an essential part of the species, or just a rare xeno that shows up under special conditions? Could he ever rival the queen in importance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stuff like this. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.